Hi guys, you are welcome back to my tutorial. Thank you guys for your support on this channel. Thank you for what you have done to make this channel stand. On today's tutorial, we are going to be making a peplum top. So it's very easy to cut and sew. I have 15 inches for my back measurement, and the half length I'm working with is 15 inches, and I will add 1 inch for the sewing allowance, making 16 inches, and I'm placing my back measurement. So I want to come down 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and I've connected it to the wideness of my neck. So this is my 16 inches for the half length. I told you I will add 1 inch for sewing allowance because it's going to have cut at that point. Here I'm placing the quarter of my waist measurement. 28 inches is my waist measurement. So I'm placing the quarter of my waist measurement, and I will add 1.5 for sewing allowance since it's stretch material. So I'm adding 1.5. There's no need of lining. So from my shoulder slope, I'm coming down 7.5 inches for my armhole line. So I'm connecting my armhole line to the shoulder slope. So I'm placing my tape measure to get the middle of my armhole line. So I'm going to curve my armhole right here. So I'm placing quarter of my bust measurement right here. So I'm placing it and I'm marking it, and I will add some inches to it. So now I'm going to connect my waist to my bust. So for the wideness of my neck, I chose 3.5 for the wideness of my neck, and for the depth I chose 3 inches. So I will connect it right here. So I'm connecting it. So I'll go ahead and cut right here. So I'm cutting it right here, cutting my shoulder slope to my armhole and to my bust. So I'm cutting to my waist. Alright guys, I've placed the one I cut on the remaining fabric to bring the back panel out. So this is what I'm doing. So I'll just cut right here. I'm cutting it like so. So I'm cutting it like so. I'm cutting the half length just like that. Alright guys, I'm moving to the damp part. So I've deducted 15 inches from the full length since I'm cutting from the half length. So I have 14 inches for the length, and I'm adding 1 inch for the sewing allowance, so making 41. Can you see I'm marking 41 because of sewing allowance? So that's just it. So I'm placing the waist measurement on the damp part right here. So I'm chalking it, and I want to add some inches to it for sewing allowance. So having done this, I'm measuring 8 inches downward for the hip point. So on that point, this is my hip point. So I'm placing quarter of my hip measurement. So this is the quarter of my hip measurement, and I'm adding sewing allowance as well. I'm adding sewing allowance. So I'm connecting my waist, my hip to my waist. So on the hair, on this part, on the length, I'm not going to place a exact measurement I got from my hip on this line. because I want it to be fitted at the down part. So I'm deducting 1.5. So I'm marking 10.5. So I've deducted 1.5 out of what I got from the hip area. So I'm marking 10.5 right here, and I'm going to connect that 10.5 to my hip points. So I'm connecting right here. I hope you understand. So I'm connecting to my hip point right here. So that's just it. So I'm cutting. So I'm cutting right here. Cutting on the line I made to the length. So cutting the down parts. So I'm cutting it. So this is it all. I already joined the down part and upper part together, and I cut the sleeve, the two sleeves. So I'll join the peplum. Can you see? So that's just it. So I'm measuring the bust measurements. So can you see? So what I have for my bust measurement, I have 35 inches. So I'm dividing the remaining inches to the both side. That's what I'm doing here. And I'll do the same thing on the waist area. I have 28 inches for my waist. So I will divide the remaining measurements to the both sides. So that's just it. I'm chalking it and I'm marking it to my bust. So I want to do the same thing to the other side. So I'm marking this one too to my bust. So I want to check maybe it's accurate waist measurements. So this is 14. So 14 times 2 give us 28 inches. So on my hip area, I'm doing the same thing. So I will share the remaining measurements to the both sides. So I'm doing it, and I will connect it to the waist line, connecting it to my waistline. Can you see? Pardon me if you cannot see very well. It's because of the nature of the material we are using. So that's just it. So I'm marking it. So I've marked it. So I'm going to my machine and sew on the line I made for the both sides. And I will pipe the neck, both front and back panel. I'm going to pipe it. That's just it. So far so good. We have come to the end of today's tutorial. Is it not beautiful? This is beautiful. Like this video, share and subscribe if you are here too. Bye.